Got quiet. What is it?
This is a thing for, yeah.
Take one of these too. By the way, I gave.
Shane, did you alert the Public Works crew about the employee update?
No.
Maybe we should do that the next time when they can show up. Yeah. Okay.
Table that?
We'll table that one.
I'll just hang on to this.
You had one job.
That's about.
I'll just hold on to this then.
You hold on to that. You hold on to that. Yep.
I try not to.
We're gonna table it.
Is time to roll, Dave?
Pretty close.
Oh,
We gotta get ready just because Pam is so darn quick. She calls the meeting to order and we're in the fourth line of the Pledge of Allegiance.
Ain't even out of my chair yet.
I know. You gotta give us old guys a chance to stand up.
Just him.
I could be a choir director. All rise. Yeah, all right. Welcome everybody to the regular city council meeting for Monday, May 22nd. We'll say the Pledge of Allegiance now. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Anybody want to do an invocation? No? Hearing none.
Barb?
Yeah. I was going to raise my hand, George, but I thought, no. It was like going up.
Our agenda as we
have a couple changes. The number 3, first quarter employee of the quarter, we're not prepared for that, so we want to take that off. And then we've got a resolution regarding an automatic mutual aid policy with Walnut Grove on the fire that Dale is here to present. And I'm thinking that since it's real short, we could put it under as the first resolution, since the others are going to take a little bit longer anyway, so that Dale doesn't have to stay the whole night. Don't ever say I didn't do anything for you.
With those additions and deletions,
I move to approve the agenda, those additions.
first and second, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Would somebody from the public like to talk about something that is not on the agenda?
I'll jump up first.
Alrighty.
Come down here tonight for 2 reasons. Tony Peterson, 101 East Craig Avenue. Come down here tonight for 2 reasons. One, I'd like to publicly thank Eric for 3 years and all the work he's done. I don't think we'd be in the shape that we're in as a community if it wasn't for him. So I want that on the record. The other thing is more to the council. So you got the financial update up here, which should pay very close attention to the debt levy as it goes out. It isn't until 2029 where, in my opinion, there's enough room in that debt levy to borrow money for construction of any type of building anywhere. And so I'm asking you to keep that in mind. I asked the community center group to please reconsider and try and remodel another facility that the city already has. On that, I'm out of here. Thanks again, Eric.
Thanks, Tony. And on Tony's thing, we should give Eric a round of applause. We certainly do appreciate what you have done. Anybody else from the public that would like to talk?
Oh, sure.
Now she stands up.
Where's Candy supposed to be coming? Okay. Y'all got in front of you that piece of paper?
Or if you gotta state your name for the
Oh,
record.
Barb Johnson, 330 Adams Street, Tracy, Minnesota. I swear to God, that's me. There's 46 homes in Greentown. 6 of them are empty, and we got 39 signatures. Plus we got from the Highline Road, you know, just around the corner that come and use the park. The comment that one week in the paper was, I think it was about the Warner Park, you didn't think residents would be very happy. Well, Greentown residents ain't very happy. And there is reasons why. And last week, ball game, 2 families come over with their kids and they played. They're using that old backstop back there as a soccer goal. You know, the kids are using that. They were rolling down the hill, playing basketball. You know, and since 1969, when the tornado had went through, they replaced the playground equipment we had with what we have in the lower park. I call it the lower park. And then we got a backstop and we got a basketball hoop. And then we got the playground equipment. That's the only thing that's ever been done in Greentown since 1969. We don't ask for a lot. You know, to us, I think it's more like a neighborhood park because we don't get the city traffic. A lot of you guys, you know, weren't even aware of what was out there. You know, or so it's just what I do, Diane. So that's what I want you to know is that it does get used. Maybe you guys don't realize how much. And I would still like to see a sand volleyball out there. If we can't have a sand volleyball because it costs too much, how about just throwing up a net? We'll play in the grass. I thought a sand volleyball would cut down on the mowing. And a shelter would be nice and all that. But like I said, we don't ask for a lot out there, and that's why it's pretty much the forgotten park. But it's not forgotten to us, you know. And as you can see, most of the neighborhood would like it to stay the way it is. Any questions while I'm up here? Oh, okay then. Thanks, you guys.
Thanks, Barb.
Thank you.
Pretty well done.
And I would like you just to take into their people's feelings and thoughts on that too. Yeah, I'm done.
Hey,
I guess Barb and I kind of put this together. We talked to a lot of people before we actually even started the petition, just to get people's thoughts on it. And after doing this petition, I thoroughly understand why a person objected to the
Warner Park?
Warner Park, yes. Because I found that mothers in particular, they like to have their kids where they can see them. And it's comforting. But not only that, but I can tell you from personal experience, if kids go uptown, they can get into more trouble. They're quite a ways away. They're doing stuff maybe they shouldn't be when they're further from home. And, you know, it's kind of like a family out there.
Yeah.
The most surprising thing was one of the first people that's, not the first, because that was me, but one of the early people that signed the petition said, "Thank you for doing this." And I was just surprised because people don't say that. And then others had obviously heard about this because it went for a couple of days, and I'd show up and they'd say, "Where do I sign?" And then he'd say, "Let me go get my husband or wife or something." And I'd say, "Well, you can put their name on the same line, but I don't want this to be confusing. I want you to know that I wanted it plain and simple. We got this many households. There's a possibility that someone could disagree. I understand that. There was one that had to think about it. I didn't get back because of the time, but that was it. The comments were very much in alignment with what Barb and I had said. I value the parks that we have in this town. Yes, we have a big park north of town that's still part of the city, but it's not really part of the main city. And that's an asset. If we lose that asset, we lose an attraction to the city. We should be building attractions to the city. That's pretty much what I want to say. And, you know, we've got things, we need to build on things that will make things better.
Thanks, Larry.
You bet.
Can I just sit here and ask you guys a question? When you came out to look at the area, did you park on Adams Street?
I parked
Park
on,
on the west one.
I went on
The east
both
one.
sides.
The east one.
East
Well, I looked at
That's-
both sides, actually.
Yeah, I went down both
Families
sides.
with the littler kids park on that street because they're closer to the upper part.
Sure.
You know, so that's, you know, that's why just, you know, that's the big parking area. We don't have a parking area, so that's where they park.
Yeah.
So just so you're aware of that, you know.
One thing I forgot to point out is
You
there
should
is
probably,
not
you guys, you should probably just
sorry.
talk to the mic, sorry.
There is not turnarounds on any of them dead-end streets. That is an issue, and it's an issue for garbage trucks. I watched the garbage trucks turn and back down them streets with kids around and cars around. It's a safety issue.
Thanks, Larry.
Thank you. Anybody else want to talk?
Well, I don't have a lot to say, but we built,
Wait, you gotta say
You
your
gotta
name,
who you
Chris.
are, Chris.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm Chris Camrud. I'm with my wife Diane here tonight. Concerned about the future of the park. When we moved there, or we built the house there, and the main reason we built there is because there's this nice little park across the street. Well, if you put two houses on that park, there won't be a little park anymore. There'll be a ravine on one side and housing on the rest, and very little of any park available. And so I'm opposed to building homes in our park. It's a small park to begin with. 2 homes would make it a tiny park, and part of that tiny park is a ravine that runs through there. And if any of you a week ago drove down Greenwood Avenue, you probably know what the situation was like. The water was about 6 inches over the road running down there. And we get that usually every spring with the spring thaw, and then again if we get a heavy rain like we had the other day. And you wouldn't want to build on the east side. You can't have park equipment there or anything because it's a natural drainage system. So I'm opposed to it, but and so it's really about all I have to say. Any questions?
Thank you guys all for coming.
thank you.
Thank you.
Diane's turn now.
No.
Yeah, you bet.
Anybody else out there that wants to talk about something that's not on the agenda? Well, alrighty. Do you want me to take notes for you?
No,
Yeah.
and no,
Get on the camera.
no pictures, please.
No pictures, no, come on.
Oh, yeah.
Camera.
Get the best side of
Look at that.
it. Yeah.
He owes me for this weekend. I took a picture of him. I'm Per Peterson. You know me, owner of the Headlight Herald. I want to echo Tony's thoughts about Mr. Hansen. Thank him for his service and his approachability with me. I understand you have a closed meeting set for tonight. Is that correct? Okay. I hate closed meetings, but I respect them, and I understand why we have them. And I hope maybe Seth can understand where I'm coming from here, being a long-lasting ink-stained wretch like myself. You had a closed meeting last week, Thursday, after the Community Center Workforce Group meeting. Okay? And it was about, I believe, moving forward after Mr. Hansen's resignation. And now we have another one tonight. My question is, why are these all closed? I understand what the meeting is all about. I've been doing this a long time. And like I said, I respect the rules and the law. But if you're not talking about an employee evaluation or an individual person, I want to know why it's closed. I want to know why I can't be here to do my job, to inform the public how the council is moving forward in replacing Mr. Hansen. And I don't think that's a big ask, because if you keep closing meetings, especially consecutive meetings, that's bad optics for a small town like Tracy. And I don't think you guys want to go there. And I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus, but I want to keep the public informed as to how the council is moving forward with a pretty big decision and what we're going to do as far as replacing someone who's been here for 3.5 years. This is huge news. And if I'm not allowed to sit in on these meetings, no matter how vague or ambiguous they are, and I understand if you start talking about individual people, yeah, we're going to close this off, we're going to lock the door. But unless you can prove that that's what you're doing, why can't I be here as not only a representative of the town, but someone who informs the public and who pays himself to inform the public? So can you answer that? And I respectfully request to be able to be here tonight after the council meeting.
Okay, so I can answer that. So our closed meeting on Thursday was about, are we going to have an individual within our employees take over as interim, or are we going to hire outside?
Okay.
So that's what we talked about, and then it's closed tonight because I had to get a hold of the people, the employees within the city of Tracy, to find out if they wanted to and what we're going to do from there. So that is why that is. And after that, I don't know the other logistics as far as like.
The issue is, and we didn't take it lightly, and we talked with Eric. Eric said that it'd be good to talk with Matt. We ran this back by our city attorney.
To close it?
Specifically to both closed meetings. We didn't do it lightly, and the reason is we are discussing abilities of current staff to handle, and some of those discussions get into that area of, an
A certain
employer
person?
relationship. Specific individuals,
Okay.
correct. Yes.
Okay.
And that's why we felt that it would not necessarily be in those employees' best interest to have some of that information laundered or whatever, to say, we would appreciate that that would be at least kept, private between employer and employer. I assure you, we're not going to get into the area of what our next steps are after the interim with that enclosed meeting. No.
Okay.
That's not at all what this is
Okay.
about.
And I respect that. I want to stay in the loop, so to speak, so I can keep my readers in the loop and keep them up to date as much as legally possible, and that goes through all the way until we hire a replacement, because that's my job. So
I appreciate that.
that's all I ask. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll just reiterate that it is important that we as a council are open and transparent as much as possible, and so that the paper or other people in the community can keep the public informed.
Okay, anybody else like to talk about anything?
Can I talk about a different subject? Because I didn't think the 3 minutes was really enough to break it into 2 subjects. So I'd like 3 minutes to talk about a different subject.
Okay.
Again, my name is Larry the Boy, and the subject I would like to talk about is our community center. I feel like, and I truly believe, I've looked at community centers. I actually sold office supplies. I've called on many towns around, saw their community centers. Community centers can be a real good thing. 1,100 square feet is not what we need. I go to Arizona in the wintertime. We have 3 buildings. One is about 5,000 to 6,000 square feet. Another one is about 1,500 square feet. Another one is probably 1,400 square feet. With a community center, you got to have bathrooms. Not a bathroom like a home, but you have to have bathrooms. You have to male, female, handicap. You want more than one stall, things like that. I think that we need to look at all things. And, you know, a lot of things have been thrown out, but we've never really sat down and looked at them. We're having beer and brats at the park, I think. So if we added on to the VMC or did something, what are some ideas? You know what? Could we incorporate it where there's a lot of people? You want to come down, see some ideas. You know, there's the old liquor store, which would have to be totally gutted, pretty much tore down, but you got a $80,000 area there that's growing to weeds and trees. That patio area. That could be put to good use. In Arizona, we have room. We do all kinds of stuff. We have crafts and cards and bingo and line dancing and aerobics and tops and just a whole bunch of things. The one thing about senior citizens that I decided I was going to do when I started to think about retiring is, what am I going to do? Moving, being active, using your mind, your body is imperative. Without that, you're dying. I saw that when I was 21 years old and working at Culligan. I delivered tanks to many houses in this town. Nicest guys in the world, retired farmers, businessmen, all that. In a few years, they were dead. I know they were dead because I got the Tracy paper and I read it. And I felt that was such a waste. These people could have helped a new business start and given them so much input. And staying active is imperative. That's what we need in the community. Activities, staying active, staying healthy.
Yeah, I don't mean to cut you off there, but...
Yeah, that's it.
But I do have one comment to that, and I don't want anybody to take this negatively because I'm not against it, but we don't have the population here like you have down in Arizona.
700 people at the most we have.
That all
700 people in that resort. 700 people. How many retired people are here in this town? 500?
I don't think there's that many.
Even 400. And then you got
But anyway,
around, yes.
thanks, Larry.
But that would be the most. Usually it's probably about 5 to 550. Thank you.
Anybody else like to talk about anything before we go on? Okay. Ready to do your thing, Dave?
A motion to approve the May 8th council minutes and the local board of appeal minutes from May 1st. Approve municipal accounts payable and payroll without breakthrough beverage. Approve municipal accounts receivable and approve the library minutes. Shh.
I'll second.
First and second, any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Schmidt?
Yes.
Jones?
Aye.
Landay?
Aye.
Abisa?
Yes.
Dobson?
Yes.
Teets?
Aye.
Mayor Condon?
Aye. Moving on to Mayor. Oh wait, we gotta do it with breakthrough beverage.
Don't forget Dave.
I'll make a motion to approve accounts payable for breakthrough beverage.
I'll second that.
First and second, any other discussion? Roll call?
Nande,
Aye.
Schmidt, Jones,
Aye.
Dobson,
Yes.
Arvisu,
Yes.
Mayor Carmen.
Aye. We need to, public
It's just a vote to accept my resignation.
vote to accept
Yeah.
your,
It's almost a formality in reality.
So we all said no, it don't matter?
That's right.
I'll make a motion to accept Eric's resignation.
I'll second. Any further discussion?
I'd also like to express my gratitude to Eric for all the things he's accomplished over the last 3 years.
Do we do roll call on this or just aye?
Yeah, you can do an aye if you want.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And then next on our agenda is sale of the parkland discussion.
I asked Diane to add that back on, just so we don't lose sight of it. Our resolution approved moving forward on the two parks. To change it, we would have to change that resolution to exclude Greenwood. And then, as a resolution, that would read into the record that we have, as a council, voted not to develop Greenwood Park. It would not keep us from continuing on with Sebastian Park, would not keep us from moving forward right now with Sebastian Park and getting it surveyed. But at this juncture, without changing that resolution, it's still sitting there with the approval for the city administrator or whoever he designates to move forward with the development of those lots. With discussion with individuals signing the petition, I would move to change that. We'll have to have a resolution drawn up our next meeting to take Greenwood off. That would be my proposal.
I guess I agree. When I agreed to the resolution, I really didn't know what we were talking about. I did not do my homework, and I apologize to the city for that. But after going out there and looking, there are a couple fairly decent lots, but it takes away, I'm going to say, that side of the town, anything for kids to play in. They'd have to come clear downtown. And
We aren't talking about taking the park equipment out.
No, I'm not either. I'm talking about the area. I'm talking about the area. So that being said, I agree with what you're saying, Tom. I'd like to take that one off. And if we need to have two, then let's open up for Warner Park again. So I'll just let it be at that, not stir the pot anymore. The one across the street from me, I've had quite a few people say they're not interested in it, but we need some place to build homes, and I guess I would go with it.
So today I did a little hike and I went to Warner and Sebastian, and I did not see any flags at Warner, so that wasn't kind of flagged out. Okay. Because the only two white flags were more tall poles that I assumed were related to possibly some drainage. So where would the proposed lots have been along?
Well, the resolution didn't include Warner Park, and so we didn't mark them out.
I understand that.
I don't know where they would go.
It would have been the swing set area.
I don't know where they would have gone, and to speculate on that would just be,
Well, it's the only flat spot left in Warner Park. It's the only possible place that it could have been. I mean, the rest is
Very low land.
Yeah, you can't build on that. And if it's off of Second Street, that's the only part of Second Street that would be Warner Park. I mean, I took a look. I've been out to Greenwood a couple times, and the only flat spot for anybody to it's not right in the middle of the jungle gym and the swing set, is that west side. And it's, if you saw where they marked it out, if we went with what is required by code for a lot size, the flag is from me to you, Dave, of where the park bench is. Maybe not even that far.
It's closer.
And southernmost lot, which would be where the backstop is, then takes up about the remaining of whatever flat spot is out there. And I guess I would be opposed to. I don't, honestly, from a standpoint of building too, I don't know how good the lot would actually even be. It's wet out there. And I don't know, if I was building, I don't know that I'd want to necessarily go there, and I don't think I'd want to build where the entire 39 residents are close to. I don't think that makes a lot of sense.
The other thing that I foresaw, because the back of their yards would be in such close proximity to the playground equipment and the benches, that very truthfully, they would have children in their yard. Because kids wouldn't necessarily know the definition of where the property lines are unless somebody put their fence up. It would just be impossible, and I don't think they would enjoy having kids in their back. Well, maybe they would love it, but most people like to have a little more control of their property.
That was for 120 foot, 100 by 120 foot deep lot. I mean, it could be configured as 120 by 100 feet deep, one lot. So, and the fact of the matter is that before any of this started, the city did have an unofficial inquiry about building a new house on that particular lot.
I don't think we can say if we would build there or not. It's not up to us. It would be that the lots would be there and the options would be for people coming to town looking for a place to build. That this is the one of the, or two of the options, one of the options. This is an option for building. You know, it's not, I totally understand people wanting a park as their neighbor or whatever, because it is a lot nicer than having even the best neighbor you could have. It's nice having just a park there. I totally get that. I respect that. But I'm also sitting here looking at that as a council, I feel we need to look at how we best move forward for our community. And if it means we can have a couple lots out there for potential building, as a council person, I feel like that's what I need to look at. I'm not saying we're selling it now, boom, boom, we're taking out all the equipment. No, we would leave the park equipment. Shane will love me for saying this. If we need to look at adjusting where that the newer equipment is to get it so it's not right in their backyard, maybe we can look at that as a council. I think we would want to look at a layout. I went out there after the rain because I know water comes through. I mean, Shane can attest I was out there looking at it because I knew the water came flowing through there. And where the park equipment is placed right now is placed probably very good because the water was going between the equipment and stuff like that. So I don't think we're messing with that part of the park. If anything, that's where we would look to see what we could do to improve. Would be on the half of the park that we're saying we're keeping. That is a very large park area, and we have to look at right now as a city, we don't have money to invest into a new housing development or anything like that. We have to look at the property we already own. And even the Warner Park, I did make the motion to exclude that because there is equipment there right now, because I wanted to be able to say to everybody, we're not moving any equipment. parks will all remain with the equipment they have with what we voted on. We're not doing that. But I also think if you look at that, those 2 lots drop down. We would have to be filling in dirt and that to bring those up, because who's going to build, I don't know, I didn't measure, 7 feet drop down from the other houses that are built along there. So even if we take those 2 lots and put them in, that's going to cost the city money. I mean, so I totally get it, and I look at the signatures and everything, and I could see if we were saying we're taking their park away. We're not taking the park away, especially the part where the small kids play on the equipment. We're not taking that away. Kids can still go there and play. I'm not an expert as to if we could fit a volleyball net and that in there, because it was wet, so I didn't go out and walk and everything. But I think we could look at how we could enhance the other half of the park. Knowing these 2 lots, maybe they won't sell right away because people don't want to park right in their backyard where kids can wander, or they have to put up a fence. But at least we need to give people an option to move to Tracy and build a house. I just feel like that's my role as a council person, to look out for the community in a whole. And I don't want to take park equipment away from any kids.
But if you take that flat area, like, because at first I was thinking if you just had 1 lot, not 2, because the second one over here is definitely close to that equipment. But if you take this flat area away, are you not taking away their only place to, because I thought to myself, well, we'll just fix it over here where they can play kickball, baseball, whatever. But then when I went out and looked at it, it's like you can't really do that because it's got the waterway going through there.
No, but a lot of our parks don't allow for a kickball field, a soccer field, a baseball field. I'm looking at community parks that are more with the playground equipment, not the larger team sports.
I guess it's not common, so it's all right to move that equipment, but the other equipment that's existing, that's been there since 1930, that's their only park. That's their only flat place that kids can go to play. Warner Park has a gargantuan amount of equipment right up the hill, all kinds of flat areas. That equipment could be moved in a heartbeat, and those 2 lots would be beautiful lots.
But we would have to bring in, yes, we would have to.
I don't think you would. No, you wouldn't.
Even if you did, that would be the homeowner's responsibility, not the city's.
Yeah. If you're looking at pure lots for development from a builder standpoint, and that's what I've done before, is those 2 lots have nice fall and beautiful locations. You can look out, you could almost get a walkout, and that's the preferred type of building lot these days, as opposed to a flat lot. But I just think it would be in poor spirit of the idea of having parks out there to take that away from them. I would not be opposed to 1 lot, but I don't think it's the right thing to do right now. We've got other areas that we could develop. If we get those 2 at Sebastian, I think that's about all we'll see building this year.
Why not just start with those and see where it goes from there?
That'd be my
So, do we have a place where we can go either on our website or a map that's in some hallway that we can even look at all the available lots that are in town? That do we have city-owned lots, or are they personally owned and for sale? What have we got for a?
There's both. There's city-owned and there's
But
personal.
where could we go to look? I'd be interested in checking out some of this stuff, and I don't know.
The website actually has them by address.
We have them by address on the website, yeah. I can't remember that, we don't have an actual map.
Okay.
but they are listed by address. The short answer is that we don't have very much in the way of developable lots in town, period.
By
One
the
of the-
way,
one of
may I just ask, and you said they're listed by address, does it give the dimensions of the lot?
I don't remember. I'd have to look at the document.
Because I think that would be important too to add.
Here's what
Three
I,
of them do have, because they're actually listed on real estate.
there's two that are listed on MLS right now. Yes, that's correct. So they would have it, but so there's two for sale on the MLS right now, and the rest are just lots that are available, but they're not listed with an agent currently. In reality, what the city needs to do is, if they want to build a new bunch of homes, you got to identify a new area where you're going to put them. And I don't just mean saying this is where they should go. I mean, you actually got to plat them out. And probably at a higher, not probably, you're going to need to hire an engineering firm, essentially to do that. Because plotting them out is not just about showing where the lines are going to go. It's about the engineering for, well, where does the utilities go, and how do you deal with drainage and things like that. Because if you build a home with bad drainage, we already know what happens with that. That's kind of what happened over there on Sebastian when they, cut down a whole bunch of, lots just out of a side of a hill behind the softball fields in the early 1980s, and now they're just draining all the way into their backyards. So you want to do the proper engineering and identify where those next lots are going to be. There's lots of places they could go, but I think that's the discussion, the direction the discussion needs to go. Where is the, if you want to grow, you got to have a subdivision. Right now you don't have one.
So those lots that are across from the Alliance Church, what actually has to happen to those to make them, you know which ones I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Just what he was saying. They have to get engineered and
Those have
plotted.
never been platted
No,
out.
they've never been platted. It's not even zoned correctly. That's zoned an industrial zone. It had to be zoned residential. Then you'd have to go in and you'd have to get an engineer to come in and try to, because the biggest problem with that particular lot is the drainage. I mean, we already have issues with drainage as it is anyway on the other side of the street. Those homes basement flood. And you can see it, when we did the drainage study, a couple years ago, the railroad tracks are essentially just a dam because the water flows all the way from this part of town. Well, the people on TV can't see which direction I'm pointing, but it comes from over by the school and then comes out, by the softball fields because there used to be a creek all the way through the town. So essentially what happens is the railroad tracks act as kind of a dam. In reality, so all the water just stays on that end of town as it flows this direction because that's where the fall goes. And so you're going to have to put in some structures out there. Otherwise, every single house that gets built on that lot is going to be filled with water in the basement when you get a bad rain. So it has to be platted, has to be zoned, it has to be engineered and subdivided, and then you're going to have to find a partner potentially to develop it unless you want to do it yourself. You want to put in all the utilities and stuff yourself and do it and sell the lots? You could, but the better scenario in my particular view is to, work with a home developer who'd be willing to take on a little bit of that risk. Maybe with a reimbursement agreement or something, I don't know, for, where you put in some of it and they put in some of it, joint venture of some kind. But it would require a lot, to do if that's where you want to do it. But you could, but in reality, you got to hire an expert to do it. So find an engineering firm who will help you with it, a development firm that specializes in this kind of single-family home development.
For some reason, I thought along Front Street, which is, I think, the street that those lots are on, I thought that they had it stubbed out for sewer and water.
No, well, there's a water main along Front Street, yeah, but that doesn't mean they're stubbed out.
Well, I would go back to kind of our subject at hand, and I would prefer that we move forward with Sebastian for 2 lots and take Greenwood off of the topic and remove that from our resolution.
I would second that.
Well, just as a point of order, council, you can't vote on this issue because the charter requires every action that you take like this to be done by resolution. And resolutions have to be presented in writing ahead of the city council meeting. And so you can kind of say, okay, bring something back for the next city council meeting, which should be June 12th. I won't be here, but whoever it is that's doing this could present that. And I would suggest that you just give direction that says, okay, it sounds like there's probably a majority, or at least it's close, maybe it's a close vote. Just put it on there that says that, amending that resolution, put it on the agenda, and then you guys can debate it at that particular time and decide what it is that you want to do. I think it's a great discussion. And so that's what you'd have to do from a legal standpoint, because that's what your charter requires you to do.
I would ask that you do that.
Yep. So, and we will do that, and I'll make sure that the staff prepares that for June 12th, and Diane can make sure it's on the agenda.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, department head reports. Did you want,
I was going to say, what were we going to do so Dale could?
can we
Let him do
have
both.
him do his thing?
We could have him do both if you want to move up and have him do the resolution at the same time.
I'll go first.
This is your first department head report since I've been here.
Yeah.
No, I'm joking, because usually you have fire meetings on Monday nights, which is why
I don't think
you're
it's
not
my
here.
first one. I think I've been to at least one, maybe two. Quick update, things are going good. We did a fundraiser here and took possession of, that was probably towards the tail end of last year we started it. Replaced our auto extrication tools, which are scheduled to be replaced, I believe, in 3 years, 2 or 3 years now, to help kind of relieve that debt load from the capital improvements budget in 3 years. So that should help by about $60,000. We're able to get into some controlled burning this year, train some new firemen on that. Do have 3 new firemen that have completed their 190 some hours of training and all their burning and all their certifications and testing. As of last Wednesday, all 3 were complete. So we have 3 new members.
How many does that give you then?
So right now, we currently have 1 opening, 27 of 28. So right now we currently have, I take that back, we currently have 2 openings, but I have 1 application on my desk and I have 1 other application coming, so we should be back to full status, providing they get started and then obviously get their 196 hours of training done just for the firefighter 1 and 2, and then their 40 some hours of first responder training. It is a large commitment, obviously, for a lot of the time they put in to do that, because that is above and beyond our 3 trainings a month. So, other than that, no real major things going on with the fire department. Do you have any questions about operations at this time? Otherwise, if you ever do, just give me a call or I can meet you down there. What you have in front of you, it's okay to do this now too while I'm here?
Absolutely, yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, what you have in front of you here is, I'm going to refer to it as a slip sheet addition to our mutual aid agreement. Our current regional mutual aid agreement that we have is with the Southwest region and the West Central region, which is approximately 96 communities. Rather detailed. I don't know if any of you were probably on when we did that agreement. I believe Dave was. That was quite some time ago. That agreement is the agreement that has all the policies when we're calling for mutual aid, asking for assistance from other agencies. What this document does, as I refer to it as the slip sheet, it really accomplishes 2 things. This is an agreement between the Walnut Grove Fire Department and the Tracy Fire Department, allowing in 2 instances, one being structure fires that are not alarm calls from hospital, nursing home, schools, and all grain bin and water and ice with swift water, ice water rescue. What this allows is, if there is an incident in Tracy or Walnut Grove or any of our coverage areas, this document allows the dispatch center to automatically page the other department at the same time.
houses burn faster now than they did. And what it does is it allows us to have, both communities to have additional resources sent immediately, instead of having to wait for whoever's in charge, incident commander that day, to request the resource. I look at it as potentially a cost savings. We're going to have additional help there quicker. In the new techniques of fighting fire, the rapid intervention team, which is the dedicated crew and dedicated truck, if we were to have a collapse or a firefighter go down in a structure fire, it allows one of us, the opposite town, to be that team that's at least already on the road, or maybe just pulling up in the time that could possibly happen. Grain bed instances, obviously it's going to take multiple departments depending upon the scenario, but at least you have 2 departments that work together, train together. We have to train together 4 times a year on some of these topics, so everybody's aware of what everybody has for each other's equipment. Really nothing more than a document saying that I don't have to key the radio, or Jason has to key the radio and ask for assistance. It's just automatically happening. And it can be canceled as easy as somebody keying the radio and saying, oh, this is a false alarm. You can be canceled, but if it wasn't, we'd have the help coming a few minutes quicker. The other thing this does allow for is, because this will get recorded in our fire reports that we were automatic aided, not mutual aided, it allows us to utilize, both communities to utilize the initial response equipment as for scoring points in the ISO insurance rating service. So every 3 to 5 years, all the communities in the state or in the country get reviewed by an ISO reviewer, and it just adds that extra 1,500 gallon a minute pump that Walnut Grove's coming with, the extra 4,000 gallons of water. It just makes it a primary resource because they're automatically dispatched, and because our county line, or our jurisdictional lines are within 5 miles of each other. So ultimately what that will do will give us both communities a better rating, because we're simply tripping the tones at the same time for both entities. Quicker response, more manpower, more water carrying capabilities, allows for hopefully a quicker outcome of resolving whatever the issue is that we're at. And then again, potentially has the ability of giving us a better rating, which would lower not only the city's insurance, but also all the taxpayers' insurance in the community and in the outer ring of the community, the 5-mile outer ring of the community. And the lucky people in between us actually get extended into about an 8-mile projection, which, as we're well aware, Walnut Grove is only 6 miles, so everybody between here and there kind of fanned out, it'll benefit them as well. Now, it will take at least a year of this being implemented, and then them to have a review, and from the review, the process normally takes 8 to 10 months, so it'll be a couple years before anybody will see this cost savings, but it's at least a step in the right direction. Also, another avenue is potentially, when we start looking at replacement of some equipment, having this automatic agreement that we're guaranteeing somebody's coming either direction, allows both communities to maybe strategize a little bit more on who's buying what piece of equipment and what resources are more needed. Fairly simple. This was reviewed by Matt. Eric and I had a nice conversation with him. He followed back up with a looks good to me. So with your blessing, I will go ahead and sign this, and the City of Walnut Grove the Walnut Grove Fire Chief has already signed it, and we will get it off to our dispatch centers.
Neil, would this automatic mutual aid kick in also if there was a tornado or some
Nope.
other severe? No.
Right now, it's just for those specific items. And for ISO, it has to have structure fire. We did dabble in the whole how to make it simple without having, the last thing I want in an emergency is for a dispatcher to have to flip through a book and go, okay, is this or is this not a cause? We did talk about, train derailments. We did talk about some of these other items, and it was, right now, we picked the most quantity that we would need, and in a natural disaster, and I'll use the flood that we had. It was virtually impossible, not virtually impossible, but yeah, it was virtually impossible to get to Walnut Grove, or for them to get to us until later that day. We did still work together as far as trying to shut down roadways with fire apparatus. They went to one side, we went to the other side. It didn't matter whose line was where. Everybody was working together. But natural disaster is not part of this at this time. Now, this document is to be reviewed amongst the fire command staff on an annual basis, as well as the report we have to fill out for the training for the ISO, that we did complete our required trainings amongst each other. So things can be meted and added. So this is one of the first ones in our area. A lot of times when you're dealing with departments within your county, you can just have, just have Lyon County from this time of the day to this time of the day, page this department for us, if we're going to be gone for a funeral or whatever. But with the county line, this just clears it up as us having a document in writing stating what items we would like to have done.
Makes sense.
I would move that we approve the resolution authorizing, let's see, which one is it now?
It's right there. 2023-45.
2023-45, authorizing an automatic aid agreement with Walnut Grove.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Arvisu,
Yes.
Teigs,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Dodson,
Yes.
Van Dyke,
Aye.
Mayor Corman.
Aye.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Dale.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for the good work. Jason, you want to go?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Entertain any questions you might have. I'd start off with thanking Shane and the city crew for their citywide cleanup, and things look a lot better today. I don't know if you drove around town at all today, but made me smile. So there'll still be some follow-up on all the public nuisance ordinance warnings that I gave out, and there will be a few that, of course, didn't heed the warning, so to say. So they'll be followed up with and dealt with this week. Some of the highlights were Truth About Drugs graduation, handing out books to first and fourth graders. Other than that, it's on the report I gave you, I guess, if you have any questions about any other things.
When is the resignation of the Walnut Grove Police Chief effective? Is he
Oh, it was immediate.
immediate?
Yeah,
You're back to,
it was Monday last week he discussed it, and Tuesday he turned his stuff in, I believe.
Is, Jason, is the new so-called recreational marijuana use law that's being enacted, is that going to make your job harder?
Time will tell. So, see where it goes.
Anybody else have questions for Jason? Thanks, Jason.
thank you, sir.
Tamara, do you want to go?
We are just about right on budget for sales for the month of April, a little over 63,000. Purchases and expenses were below budget. Cash flow was above budget, kind of equaling out the month before. We're still almost 9,000 above budget so far this year. Burgers, Bands, and Brews is coming along. Everybody get their tickets. It's like we're excited about the new year and the new adventures. So, I mean, the new additions to the Burgers, Band, and Brews. So hopefully everybody else is. Aloha Night, get that on the calendars for July 14th. Thank you to the city crew for getting our sign put up out there. It helps. Have you drawn by and seen it? Yeah, it helps, and it's like not having to fight with having it in the yard, and especially it'll be nice in the winter time without having to have it be plowed over by the snow. So thanks to the city crew for that. The end of April, I attended the MMBA conference. I actually think that this year's conference had better seminars this year than they have in the past. And the beverage alcohol retailer convention coming up in June. Since we won an award, they waived the $695 for the convention. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gone. So talked with Eric, and now we're going to go to that and then go get our award. So, and anything otherwise, anybody have any questions?
You feel like your hours are about right? That
For-
you're open?
Oh, yeah, and it's like not this last winter, but the winter before, we actually went down to winter hours, and we actually didn't do that this year. And I feel like we're good with hours. So, anybody else have any questions? We good?
Amen. Thank you. Val, do you want to go?
Okay, the only thing I really want to touch on and emphasize here is the summer reading program, which will start June 1st. And that will be the reading challenge that will get started on the 1st. So kids keep track of their time. And I actually bought a prize wheel this year for kids to spin, and it's super fun. So I hope everybody comes down and checks that out. I'm excited to use it. And story time will start on June 13th it's Tuesday mornings at 10:30. We're starting that a week later than usual this year because Diane is going to be out of town, and I just can't do it without her. So we will wait a week and get started then. And then our first bigger program for summer reading will be a music program on June 7th. And I have the wrong time there. It's actually 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and that will be a kids' music program. The Jolly Pops. It's basically some dads who started playing kids' music and going around and touring libraries and things like that. So it should be a good time. Do you have any questions for me?
Bill, could you refresh my memory about the proposed program about people bringing in electronic devices?
Right. So we haven't gotten too much planning done on that yet. I need to get a hold of Stephanie from Lyon County Environmental again and see. I think they were maybe going to try it out in Marshall first and see what kind of response they get and see about volunteers and that sort of thing. And I do want to, I need to contact her too because I've had some interest in a composting class. So we'll want to get that set up too. They did have that in Marshall, and it had a great turnout there. So it's something that I think a lot of people are interested in. So we'll try to get that scheduled also.
The reason I ask about the Fix-It program is right after we brought it up the last time, there was a story in the Star Tribune about a very successful program in one of the Twin Cities communities. So it can be done, I guess.
Yeah. It can, and we just need to find the right people and give it a shot on fixing things and have fewer things end up in the landfill. So, anything else?
So something that I noticed today when I was downtown.
Yeah.
I noticed that some little kids had their bikes like in the alley.
Oh,
in the bike path. So I don't know if you just want to make a mention to.
I will remind them.
People's, little kids probably aren't going to know, but
Right. Yeah, I'll remind them tomorrow morning because I think I know who it is, and we had to tell them last year.
Don't want their bikes to get run over.
No, we told them that last year. Hey, don't put it in the alley. Somebody's gonna run over your
Slide it
bike.
over
So,
just a little bit more.
there's bike racks right there. So.
Mayor drives through here, she's wild.
Oh.
There is a bike rack, correct?
There is a bike rack. Yep.
Yeah.
We just need to remind them to use it because when you're excited to come to the library,
When you're excited to get to the library.
right, then you
Yeah.
sometimes forget a little bit. So.
Just a reminder.
Yep. I will mention that to them tomorrow because I'm sure they'll be in.
Anything else? Thanks, Val.
Thank you.
Tyler, you want to go?
All right. I have a PowerPoint for you all tonight. It's the first quarter financial update of 2023.
You want to do that right now?
Or I can go later.
We certainly can. Let's do it. It's ready to go.
All right, let's go to the next slide. All right, so first off, revenue looks low because most of our revenue comes in June and November, so that's to be expected. Expenses seem to be on track. 20% of the budget was used, and good news, miscellaneous revenue is going to be much higher this year. All of our investments that we have with Ellers are getting a lot more interest than in the past. And next slide. General fund revenues. There you just kind of see a layout of where our revenues come from. Mostly intergovernmental revenue and general taxes. And next slide. Here's a description of that I came up with. It's helpful to understand the different general fund revenue categories. So general taxes come in June and November. Licenses and permits, that refers to business licenses and permits and building permits. Most of the business licenses and permits come in the last quarter, a lot of liquor licenses, and then building permits obviously more in the summertime. Intergovernmental revenue mostly comes in July and December. And then charges for services, that's special fire protection, which most comes in April. I already saw that come through the office, but it doesn't show up on this report. Camping fees, swimming pool fees, fines and forfeits are police fines, special assessments, June and November. Miscellaneous revenue, that's interest earnings and rents and royalties, and other financing sources. Contributions from enterprise funds at the end of the year is where most of that comes from. But what is in there right now is the insurance claim payout that we got from the squad car. Next slide. Breakdown of the general fund personnel services. We're on track with 21% used. And then general fund supplies. Next slide. 18% used. Most people are under budget for it being only the first quarter. Libraries used a little bit more. They seem to pay out more at the beginning of the year from what I've seen with their finances. Next slide. General fund services and charges. Finance and admin is low because half of the budget is for insurance, audit, and property taxes. We already paid out property taxes here in April, so that'll go up. Once again, police is high because of the fixes on the squad car. Library has used up half of their budget, mostly for Plum Creek Library System. Next slide. Airport fund. Expenses were very low in the first quarter, and then we had a lot of proceeds this year from the solar farm, so that was good news. And you can see that on the miscellaneous revenue line there, $28,812. All right, next slide. Well, this slide pretty much echoes what the first gentleman this evening mentioned, that we really don't have much wiggle room in our budget, in our finances till 2029 when the debt service goes down again. And next slide. Water fund. Revenue is at a good level. It'll pick up in the summer. Intergovernmental comes later in the year, along with assessments. And then the expenses will be picking up as the street projects are underway now. And sewer fund. The charges are on track. Intergovernmental revenue and special assessments come later in the year. And then capital outlay is currently very low since the street projects are still in process. Storm sewer fund, revenue is on track. Expenses are below budget. Most are for engineering costs, and none have been incurred thus far for services and charges. Liquor store fund. Boxcar Liquor had a great quarter. You'll see that the net cash flow was quite a bit below budget, and that was mainly because, it was because of high inventory purchases and slightly higher expenses than budgeted. And next slide, other funds. Deputy Registrar showed $26,000 in profits. Public Housing Fund increased cash by $8,000. Solid Waste Fund made $19,000. EDA has spent $9,000 of the $25,000 that was budgeted, and cemetery and airport funds are on track. And that was all. Do you have any questions?
Tyler, on the deputy registrar, are people moving through pretty good now as far as customers, or is there much of a wait time, or how's that going?
It really depends on the day. We have some days that we only have one person in the office, like today. Stacy's on vacation, and when that happens and there's a build up in the hall, it does take a little while to get through people. So there are days like that. Then other days, a person can come in with 10 titles that they want transferred because of a deceased family member, or there's certain things that take a lot of time. Mm-hmm. So it depends on the day, it depends on the time, but overall, I think we're doing well. I think we are getting them through there, but it depends on the situation and the staffing.
Yeah. But our customers, are they generally satisfied with the service that they're getting? Like the wait times aren't intolerable?
I would say generally they're pleased. Maybe once every 2-3, I'd say every 2 or 3 weeks, we'll have a day that it gets built up and wait times get too high. Mm-hmm. But overall, I think we're doing well.
I came in today at 1, and I think Diane was covering, and Crystal had just parked and was in her way, and there were probably 2 or 3 people. I don't know how quickly they just dissipated, but help was on the way. So.
Yep, this afternoon, I think the last person in line, it did take maybe 45 minutes for them to get through. So today was one of those days. But overall, I love how Krista and Stacy work together. They'll see when there's the need, and then they both hop in and take care of things quickly.
One additional comment on the chart about the debt service. If memory serves me correct, the city's historic debt service, annual debt service, was about $500,000 each year before we got into all these heavy-duty infrastructure projects. So I mean, I'm just pointing that out. Your chart starts at $1 million, and if we had charted that at historical standards, it would really look high. But it's understandable because of the infrastructure projects that we've done.
Our current debt load is $27.7 million. 21.4 of that was borrowed in 2019. So, I mean, if you figure 3/4 of it, happened just in the last few years, and so it's 3 to 4 times higher than a normal debt service. Not normal, but a historical debt service in the city of Tracy. Yes, that's fairly accurate. I think I figured at one point that at our peak, it's about a $1.2 million increase on an annual basis, and just to give people a perspective about what that means, our tax levy is only about 1.4 million this year. So we levy about as much as we bring in as our debt payments are. It's manageable, but it's a lot. But you know, you're getting what you pay for, right? And you can see it out there right now. And then, you know, we just did this online survey, and number one thing that people are concerned about is streets, and that's what it's for. So.
And seeing these debt service levels, I'd really like to encourage the city council in the future, as we're preparing budgets and planning for the future, to be saving the excess that we have in water fund, sewer fund, to save that and use it for future projects. I don't want to take on any more debt, like, period, if we can help it. Personally, I don't believe in debt. I've never had any debt in my life for a car, college, house, nothing. So I'd like to keep us away from that if we can. Any more questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Tyler. Shane, do you have anything you want to say?
Oh, I got
He's still stiff from Saturday.
I am.
I was
so warm too.
I was too.
I figured you wanted an update on cleanup day, so I have that. Just the numbers I have, what I can count on the trailer, it looked like we had 41 mattresses, which is up about 10 from last year. We had 1,260 pounds of tires we hauled to the landfill this morning. And I can go over 10 air conditioners, 15 dehumidifiers, 9 dishwashers, 12 microwaves, 2 freezers, 2 refrigerators, 11 small tube TVs, 7 medium, 7 large, 14 flat screen, small ones, 5 mediums, 26 large flat screens, 2 water softeners, 3 dryers, 6 monitors, and a whole bunch of scrap iron and 3 roll-offs of garbage that were well over full. So,
Yeah.
so if anyone drove by after we were done, there was a little shortage of space towards the end there. But
how do we come out with like our charges for mattresses and, you know?
we are
appliances?
usually
Do we-
behind.
What's that?
We usually don't make what it costs to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shane, what kind of comments did you get from the public as far as, oh, that refrigerator fee is too expensive, or why are you charging so much on mattresses? Could we inch those up a little more and still keep the participation up?
I don't know. Diane was taking the money. She'd probably hear all that, but I don't know. Did you hear anything?
Nothing.
Okay. No.
I'm kind of with Tom, if we can somehow cover our expenses. It's just a nice service for the city to be offering.
So there's
That's down driving.
There's a few things that have changed since we started the cleanup day. You know, the first year we used to pay for all the roll-offs to get rid of that. Now that's part of the contract with Southwest, so we don't pay for the garbage disposal. You know, so that helps offset a little bit. What goes in the dumpster, we don't charge a lot for. You know, we still pay through the, you know, the service contract with Southwest in one way or another. But you know, but mattresses seem to go up every year to some degree. You know, I had heard the landfill's charging more now, but you know, for a soiled mattress or a wet mattress, that has to go in the dumpster. That's $25 a mattress. Well, we're only charging what, 15? So, you know, we're losing money, but the council, you know, at that time when we set this cleanup day up, I don't know how many of you were, Dave, you were probably on, I don't know if Jerry, you were on then, but it was quite a while ago, but their point was to get rid of trash in town, not make revenue off of it. So that's kind of why the prices are set where they're at. You guys feel free on the fee schedule to increase those as you wish for next year, and we can review those. And
Can we take the good ones up to Marshall?
Yes,
that
so
process?
we take all the dry ones that they'll take in recycling. And I think last year was like $7 a mattress. You know, we charge 10, but then we still I have to send 2 guys up there because they don't have help on unloading it. So I gotta send 2 guys up there and truck and fuel and, you know, time to stack and strap and all that. So, you know, we're breaking even on most of those, if not costing us a little bit of money, so.
And it's one of those I'd like to keep the cost low. I mean, we could charge to make sure we're covering everything, but then people are gonna start not bringing stuff. So I think if we keep making it at a worthwhile price, people are still gonna keep showing up. And when we started out at 9 o'clock, there were 22 cars in line, and it didn't get below 15 cars for
Went down to 2 and
hours.
we had pizza for about 5 minutes and then it just
Yeah,
piled
we
right
had
back up
had a
again.
slice of pizza. There was nobody in the parking lot. We each grabbed the slice of pizza and came back out of the building, and there were 6 cars in line. It's like, where did these people?
Nice to hear that.
We weren't bored, I'll tell you
Nice to
that.
hear
No,
that
I guess
Jason
not.
Saw that there is a
Yeah.
noticeable, that was noticeable, much of a difference.
Other than that, we're fighting pool, balancing now. We turned purple for about 5 minutes this morning and we hit it with some chemicals and got it to come around before it stained. Too bad, so we're gonna try to work through the purple process here this week before they do swimming training next week, so. Say it, as of the end of the day, it looked good yet, so. As soon as you hit the chlorine to it, it oxidizes everything that's in it and just trying to get that filtered out, so. As you can see, Center Street's moving along. There's some really deep sewer in Center Street. The one manhole they're waiting for right now is 20 feet deep. They're drop manholes, so obviously as you're working into the hill, you know, that pipe can't, you know, be put in the same slope as the hill. It's got to be set at a certain grade, so, you know, that's not flat, but it's, you know, it's a lot less than what the slope of the grade is. So.
Is still going into it, right?
Yeah.
So there's no surprises there.
No. You look down there, I think it was Friday, you'd notice there's a giant pile. I'm sure, Jan, it's right outside your window. You probably saw that. It was pretty deep in that area. So, you know, they'll kind of drop and then they'll keep ramping up as they get to the south. But yeah, it's pretty deep infrastructure in that road. So water can kind of be laid, you know, as, you know, the land lays for the most part, but sewer, if you have too much grade, you have issues with, you know, the solids not moving with the liquids, so.
Yeah. I had a resident on 4th Street East contact me about water in the basement, and he was just kind of curious, was after the big rain, but what happened and why are they going to always have to worry about this, or what would have caused that to happen?
It depends on, is it sewer or seepage or?
I think it was sewer, but I can't remember this resident saying for sure.
There was a few that had sewer issues. You know, my recommendation, if you live on the bottom of town, is to put some sort of backflow preventer in to prevent that, but we had some issues with our flow meters reading correctly with that heavy flow. You know, they weren't set up to take on that much water, so you know, what it looked like it was fine. You know, there's some areas that took on a lot more sewage than the rest of the town, so there's a few basements, and I've turned those over to the League of Minnesota Cities for review, so.
Okay, so there possibly is some help for those residents?
Possibly, but it's completely in their court now. The city is removed from it, so.
So what do we as a city need to try to do so?
Keep fixing infrastructure so this don't happen.
This is on a road that's already been done though.
Doesn't matter. The problem is it's citywide. It's not just that area. The reason they get hit is because that's the outfall line leaving town. And when you go so we were running 212 gallons a minute Thursday night before this rain. If we went over it'd be 5,400 plus gallons per minute running during the peak of Sunday morning. So if that puts in perspective the difference between sewage and stormwater, that's how much stormwater we got coming in. So take the difference of that, we got over 5,000 gallons a minute. Take that times 60 times 24, that's how many million gallons per day that we have coming into our plant that isn't from anything but it's footing drains and basements, it's people that don't comply with the sump pump ordinance, and just crappy infrastructure alone. I mean, you got clay pipe, they're 2-foot sections, they leak, so it basically acts like a field tile, and it's going to get in the sewer system. So as we do projects, it's getting better. We used to have to bypass on an 1.5-inch rain. We've been making it through 3-inch rains now. So I mean, we're getting there, but say it's not going to happen overnight. So we are changing a few things with our flow meter to read higher flows, but it really wasn't set up to ever have a thought of that much water coming in because of our system. It's well over the design capacity. So we have a company coming in the end of the week to set our flow meter up a little bit different so it can read those higher flows and notify us of the issue. Because I was up every night, every hour, every half hour actually, Saturday night, pinging the system to see what the flow was, and it wasn't telling me we were ready to bypass. But it was already over that threshold, and when it goes over the threshold, it reads less than what's going in. It starts going back the other way. So, you know, it's only reading, so Sunday morning we had 4,600 gallons a minute coming in on the, you know, if we look in the measuring stick that's in the flume, the flow meter is only reading 1,000 gallons a minute. So it's reading about a quarter of what was coming in. So that's why, you know, the system is in place to watch that, and it just wasn't, it was just calibrated two months, not even 2 months ago. So, but it's calibrated on our normal flows, not that high flows.
So they're coming next
They're coming, I think, Thursday this week.
to recalibrate it?
Yeah, so they're going to raise up the sensor, because the sensor has to be in 9 inches of water. The sensor was underwater because there was stuff stuck to it. So it's got to go up another foot and a half to be able to read those kinds of flows. So to be able to notify us in the future. So hopefully, you know, the basement issues, you know, are fixed with that. I think we had two. There's 2 in that area that were reported to me from that issue. There's another one that's unrelated, and that was from things that shouldn't have been flushed that got flushed. So that was on Morgan Street. So, and it really wasn't the owner's fault. It was other users that did that, but it's not in the city's control. You know, what people flush, we can't watch every pipe in town. So yeah, that's the scoop on that.
So did other people on East Howlett have troubles too? 'Cause I know this one particular family did. I didn't know if everybody else did too.
There's one in East Howlett. There's another one that had a real minor leak that had a backflow that worked, but he caught it and shut his down. So he had a little bit of wet carpet he had to clean in a couple of corners, but those are the only ones that reported anything to me.
So for people that continue to dump their sump pumps into the sanitary system, which we know we have a ordinance, whatever, that they are not to do that. How can those people be identified? Because they're obviously not being considerate of people that are downstream from them.
Correct.
It's taking care of their basement, but it's just causing problems for the ones downstream versus getting it out of the house and helping both directions.
Yeah.
Is there any way to identify people that are doing that?
So-
Because I was told Marshall has a way that they can do that. They know if people are dumping. Now, I did not talk to Marshall myself. I'm going by people that have come to me.
They have a lot bigger staff.
Well, I was wondering about even if it was their capabilities.
So right now, when we go in to do any meter work, we check sump pumps. You know, so if we have to replace a meter head, replace a meter, if we have any reason to go in the basement, I do it on building inspections. And if we catch them at, you know, that time, if it's that time of the year between, you know, April and usually freeze up November, December, then, you know, we can find those people that do that. And hopefully they would put us on we'll put them on the list to check them more frequently,
But you have to have a reason to go into the house in the first place, so.
and the time for that. Right now, we can't even keep up with the grass with my staff, and with the street projects and water shutoffs and everything that we have to do to utility locates. And
With, you know, and obviously that adds to the problem, but if everybody switched as they should, would we still, with that kind of a rainfall, have had an issue with our current?
we'd have some. There's a few roof drains too on some older buildings downtown that we need to find a route out so they can connect to something else, but there's really no correct way to fix it right now without causing another issue. But we're working on those. But in this case, it was well after the rain when the peaks hit. So that's telling me sump pumps, footing drains, and infiltration. Footing drains are a big one. A lot of the houses between late 50s to early to mid 80s, even some late 80s houses, anything built in that era, they seem to not want to put sump pumps in, and they hooked them right to the sanitary. So, you know, all that water that would normally go into sump pumps going directly in. And the only way to really find those is to camera them, and we do that during the street projects, you know, as we go. But some of them are impossible to get a camera in because you can't get into a clean out or anything to get, you know, some way to observe what they have hooked up. So, and some of them are just really leaky basements and the water runs down the floor drain. So other than fixing your basement, it's kind of hard to get away from some of that, but we're trying to minimize it the best we can, hit the big ones, the preventables, and keep working towards the goal of no I&I, but it might be 60, 70 years before we get there. But
So we just need to put a plea out there again to the citizens. I know there's been things posted,
yep, it's in the paper, it's in,
times, but just to please get your sump pumps.
Yep.
Not pumping into the sanitary.
yep. You know, we don't have an 18-inch pipe for the whole town, so if everybody hooks an 1.5 inch of line, it's 900 some connections, so it ain't gonna take long. So
And that being said, how are we doing on the street project that was done last year? Are we figuring out what to fix?
That's letter D coming up.
Is it? I missed
We're
that.
getting there, George.
Okay, never mind then. Put my question back.
Tom, did you get your question answered on Center Street?
Yeah, I did ask them. We're not done yet.
I talked to the engineer today too, just so everybody knows everything is passed so far on compaction for everything that's on Center Street, so there's no issues. They're going a lot deeper than they have in the past too, so they're kind of doing it as they build the trench up, so we have the deeper readings too. So they've done 6 different areas and they've all passed so far.
So Shane, have we had any compaction results for the streets that were troubled from years past?
That's letter D. That's D. That's coming up.
Thank you.
Any other questions for me right now?
Thank you, Shane.
Yep, you bet.
Eric, you ready to do your last report?
The only thing I want to add that's not in my report, I know that people were really interested in this, and we'll post something on the website about it. We already sent the information to City Council and the staff, but the survey that we did on budget priorities, we had 183 people respond to that. We asked them what the priorities were, ranking from top 1 through 6. Number 1, they ranked as streets. Number 2, they ranked as parks. Number 3, fixing the VMC. Number 4, equipment for police and fire. Number 5, community center. Number 6, airport. We asked a whole series of kind of an open-ended question. There's like 80 or 90 different comments. I obviously can't read all that tonight. And then we asked people if we should spend taxpayer dollars on the community center, and 79% of the people who responded to the survey said no. And I just wanted to make sure that we got that information out there. I don't have anything else on my report. I just want to thank, in particular, Jerry and Dave, because you were on the council at the time. It's a little different council than it was a few years ago, that hired me, and I appreciate the opportunity that you gave me. I've learned a lot in the city of Tracy, and very proud of a lot of the work that we've done. I think that there's a lot of different ways to look at it, but from my perspective, kind of the victory is this idea of thinking ahead of how do we, plan for these future improvements, and not just wake up one day and say, oh no, we have to do something now or else, which is kind of what happened, years ago when the state put us under a building moratorium because of the sanitary sewer issues that we were facing. And as a council as a whole, you all have really stepped up and made some tough decisions about, fees and taxes and things like that I know that a lot of people in the community didn't like. And so I think that shows a lot of political courage to do that. It took a lot of political courage to, move forward with the projects in the first place. And so, thank you for that, and thank you for the opportunity to serve this community. I appreciate it. With that, unless you have any questions, I don't have anything else, and we can move on to the D about the wavy streets. So this is, I'm just going to editorialize for a second. I think Shane probably feels the same way, and I'm sure, Shane, you're going to want to come up and answer questions too as they come up. But, we told the engineers and the construction people that we had a walkthrough meeting with everybody at one point, and we told them we want to have a solution in front of the city council on the 22nd. And we needed to make that happen, and we were going to do testing first. Yeah, we understand, we can do that. I didn't even see the agreement to do the testing with the AET, the testing company. I think I saw it on Wednesday of last week, and I signed it within like 20 minutes of receiving it. And I haven't even heard from them as far as when that's going to be scheduled yet. So it's frustrating that we do not yet. The intent is to do that engineering, Jan, so that we can, measure the results of what the compaction is right now. But we don't even have it scheduled yet. We've signed the agreement with them to do it, but I don't know when it's going to happen. And I wish I did. From a process standpoint, I wouldn't recommend that. Right now, we're under a work stoppage with 3A2. I would not recommend opening that work stoppage until you know what the results of that test is, and then have a plan, moving forward. My hope is that in 3 weeks, the June 12th meeting, that you'll have that. But I don't necessarily know that we can promise it because it's out of our hands to a certain extent. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Shane, but
no, Kyle did mention and I think I put this in that report, my report on the settlement issues, but there's about 50 areas that were identified last year, and out of those, I think there's only 8 now areas this year that they spotted that has changed since last fall, as far as major settlage. A lot of the stuff that was there was from last fall. There's obviously more areas than that right now, but from what has actually moved since last fall, there's 8 additional areas, and that's what they're going to do the testing on. And I think only one of those areas, if I recall, I think I put it in my report, but so don't quote me on this, but the is it like one maybe from the 2022 work that they did? That had some settlage, so but they're out marking. There's some paint lines and some of the roads on some of the corrections that they have to make. They're marking a few more sidewalks today that had some settlement issues. So, you know, they're identifying the areas and there's going to be repair to them. But as far as the testing goes on, you know, that second layer asphalt, you know, that's the unknown right now.
I know there was some question last year of putting this on hold, that we could pass a certain date where our funds to actually pay for this could be in jeopardy. Is there anything to that that we have to get this done by a certain date? Or
All of our
delay
all of our projects have to be done by August 15th
of this year?
Of this year. We've had some conversations last year with rural development about, well, you know, what happens if we have a situation and we can't quite get it finished. They said a couple of things to us. One is, well, your funding is guaranteed, so you shouldn't worry about that. But two, we won't entertain an extension on that August 15th deadline until we get closer to that, you know. So if we run into a situation where, you know, there's something that's causing a problem, yeah, we could ask for more time to complete the project, but I wouldn't recommend that you assume that, nor would I recommend that you do that, because I think we got to hold the contractor's feet to the fire to get it done on time, you know. But that's an option. It's a potential option. But August 15th is when everything's supposed to be done.
In light of the problem on that particular part of it, in order to release funds, is it possible to negotiate a longer extended warranty?
No, because the contract is with rural development.
Okay.
It is not just with the contractor. It's us and rural development and the contractor. And this is a standard rural development contract. And so we can't do a side deal outside of that because they're providing the bulk of the funding for this project. We're kind of stuck with what we have. What is it they say about he who has the gold rules, or has the rules? The golden rules, who has the gold rules? The federal government has the gold, so they rule? That's kind of what we're looking at here.
And we can't change anything about, like, normally you have a certain amount of, you know, crown to a road. We would have to.
They have to meet those specs.
Have to meet those specs. We can't lower that with the idea that maybe on down the line we have to put another layer over it or anything.
No, because they're pretty flat the way they are.
Okay.
You know, just to, you want to leave provisions for overlays. I mean, on average, you usually do 2 overlays in the street.
Well, that's what I was wondering, if we leave more room for overlays.
You know, that's 20 years out.
It is, okay.
You know, otherwise you start pulling out of driveways and you'll bottom out. You know, you just look at North Center Street. You know, that's had a few overlays on it already, and it's pretty good slope on the edges. So
you will have a 1-year warranty after final acceptance. I mean, we're not even close to final acceptance yet on this project. So, I mean, I suppose you get to final acceptance sometime this summer. I think you've got probably the middle of next summer yet, you know, on the warranty. So that
was
would.
the warranty something that, did you say that rural development does the warranty, or we pick the warranty?
The warranty is part of the contract, and the contract signatories are us and rural development and the contractor. And, you know, the warranty specified is what the standard federal contract is.
So who do we take that to? Do we go to rural development when we're not pleased?
You go to the contractor, yeah. Your redress would be with the contractor, yeah.
And we're still holding some funds.
We still have the 5% contingency back, yeah. So that hasn't been spent yet either. So I wish I had a better answer for you tonight. I wanted to have a better answer, but it just didn't happen.
The only reason I question that is because it's like, we're out in the middle of a field, and ours are always 2-year warranties, and this is a road,
Well,
only a 1.
I don't know what to tell you. You know, this is what the Rural Development Agreement is.
Doesn't make any sense.
They literally put it in front of you and say, this is what it is.
Would you like our money?
Okay.
Would you like our money? Yes. Then sign here.
Alrighty.
It's a standard
Like-
contract.
Doesn't make any
Kind of
sense.
like your home loan, can't change any of those 42 pages.
All standard.
That's what we know about that. So, new business, Mayor?
Mhm.
All right, the first one is first quarter budget amendments. There's 3 items on there. One is just accounting for the expenditure and the insurance payment for the squad car that hit a deer. The second one, the second and third one require a little bit more explanation. I'm going to let Shane explain the SCADA. Do you want to go first on that, or do you need another minute? I can talk about housing first.
Pull up a chair.
I don't have the numbers.
That's okay. That's okay. Here's what it boils down to. What it boils down to is that when we originally did this project, we thought it was going to cost about $130,000. And then when we did the engineering with Bollig, it ballooned to like $410,000,
I think.
$410,000. And we're like, okay, well, what are we going to do now? So essentially, the idea is that we phase it. And so we had to do a budget amendment to increase the amount in order to accommodate that. And so we don't plan on doing all of it all at once.
It'll be phased in 3 different.
It'd be phased. And so we're looking at $165,000 additional, which we have sufficient fund balance in the water fund in order to accommodate that.
This is
But-
for the airport.
No, this is for the SCADA system. So we have to, I'm going to let Shane explain why we have to do SCADA and what this is exactly and why it's important.
So SCADA, I know this has been brought up in a few different council meetings, but what it is, it's basically the computer that runs the water plant. It tells us when there's an issue, alarms. It feeds the chemicals to the water. It handles backwash. Part of that system's been dead for 2 years now, the backwash part. So it takes basically 6 hours of labor, which used to take us about 6 minutes every week to do everything that the SCADA used to do for us. Because we have to manually shut valves and manually backwash 4 times a week. So the first phase of this would be taking care of the water plant. The other one is we have no alarm on our sewer. We have anything on our sewer. There's no alarm. There's a website for us to access pond flows. There's no communication with anything on our lift station. The only thing we have is hopes and dreams of somebody telling us that the red light's flashing. And now after the hospital put a whole bunch of red lights all over the area that don't flash, it's hard to pick out our red flashing light in the middle of them. So we talked about changing the color of that light, but it's just something that a lot of people don't notice. Thankfully, Dale watches it real closely. He's hooked to it. And I did send a letter out, and we're having issues with what people were flushing on calling us when that red light flashes. So just a little bit of public knowledge on what that means when that's happening. But
So the red light you're talking about is the one, like, between the parking lot?
and the 2 parking lots, yeah. So it's a stainless steel box with the red light on top. So if that's ever flashing, it should never be lit at all. So if it's flashing, make sure you call me.
We can try to keep an eye on it.
But
Where is this at?
so the plan with SCADA is is to tie in these other sites, and that's why they're phased now. Initially wanted to tie it all together at once. So now phase 1 would have provisions to tie those other sites in, but not tie the other sites in right away because of cost, trying to break it up so we can budget for it down the road. Because it's technology, you want to do it, you don't want to wait 10 years, 15 years to tie the rest of it in, but so basically the first phase is the heart, the water plant, the water tower, the wells, the call-out system. You know, it kind of has to be done at once to work together for the system to work. And then the next portion would be the 2 sewer sites. So, and that just, like the whole basement issues with, you know, water backup and stuff like that, it gets rid of that human error. You know, if someone falls asleep and doesn't check it, you know, it gets rid of that error. It's going to actually call you. And if I don't answer, it's going to call the next person and the next person, and then it'll start all over. So it's a good system to have in place to prevent things like that from happening. The ponds really don't have that unless we spend thousands of dollars a year for a maintenance contract to put all that in place. It's been working since 2019 for me to wake up and check it, but someone's got to check it when it's raining to make sure that it's not over. But this would take care of basically all the sewer water sites that need monitoring. And it's nothing fancy. This is basically down to the bare bones. So we can remove a few different features, but we're going to have to budget for them and replace them anyway down the road because they're about to their life cycle too. So we're running on a 1989 system for the backwash, and that's not running anymore. That's tied into a 2006 system that was retrofitted to the 89 system that we have things disabled to make it run. So kind of a long explanation, but it's definitely a need. If that system goes, I can't imagine the amount of labor it would take to run the water system. So
Bottom line is a life, health, safety issue. You know, we want to have clean water, and we have to have this system in order to get this clean water. Unfortunately, it costs us a lot more money than we thought it was going to cost. But we have the money in the water fund to do it, and you know, we're going to make it a little bit less painful by doing it in 2 pieces. The only thing you see in here is just the first part of it. $260,000. There'll be another $150,000 that'll come on down the road here in the next year or 2.
If the price don't go up.
Price will go up. So that's that. Unless there are any more questions about that, I'll let Shane go.
So if we do it, when can they start doing it?
This summer.
They say, so when I talked to them earlier this year, it's about 6 months is what they're out for materials on something like this, because it's all custom built.
This summer.
So
later this year.
It might be at the end of the year, but that's the time they want to do it, because of, you don't want to do it in the summer when you got peak flow. So we would have to shut the system down periodically. But
so it's good timing to get started now then.
Yep.
Good.
So that's that. The third item is just to account for some expenditures and some grants that Val received in the library for some art programs. And the last one is a housing study. There's been a little bit of discussion about this at the EDA. Jeff Carpenter, who's not here tonight because he had some family things he had to deal with, and I have discussed this for a while. We've had some extensive conversations with the Southwest Minnesota Housing Partnership. We think there's some opportunities potentially for some grants, but we're not going to be competitive with those grants without a housing study. We also think that this housing study is going to provide some benefit in people potentially wanting to build homes here. If you can kind of show them what kinds of homes might be possible to build here, what the demand is, because that's partly what this study is going to show us, is what kinds of products should you be building. That will help us kind of market the community to potential developers. A lot of communities have done these studies before. Jeff went out and talked to, and I did too, talked to some companies who do this kind of thing. A lot of them are pretty booked up at the moment, but we did find one that's willing to do it this year for $18,000. And honestly, that's about right based on what I've been told and talking to other people. And Marshall did one recently that cost about that much, and some other communities as well. So this is not out of line. Our plan is to take this out of the public housing fund. There's about $250,000 in cash sitting there right now. Unrestricted cash. This is not any of the money that we use to sell for O'Brien Court. That's all saved for future debt reduction. This is money outside of that. And so we're essentially spending some money that's essentially sitting there at the moment, to try in a housing fund to try to study housing to see what the demand might be for housing in the city. And so there's a budget amendment to increase the costs in that fund for that. And those are the 4 items in this budget amendment. We can afford all of them. Some cases we already had to spend the money, like the money on the squad car. But with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions about any of that.
Well, all of those things are very important regarding the housing. I know we're losing people from Tracy because we don't have the housing that they're looking for.
Yeah, we've been taking this at EDA down the road for a year, probably, of saying, what do we need to build? Do we need apartments? Do we need single family? Do we need homes? Do we need this? And, none of us are.
All of the above.
Well, probably, but none of us are.
We can't do a lot of stuff until we have the housing study.
Right, and once we have that, then we can maybe find some funds to.
Yep.
It's kind of a step.
It's a step.
So I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2023-42 for the first quarter budget amendments.
I'll second.
First and second, any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Weinrich,
Aye.
Dobson,
Yes.
Teagues,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Easter,
Yes.
Mayor Coleman.
Aye.
This next item is another perfect example of how money comes with strings. So PFA, the state, Public Facilities Authority, has given us, and we're not even done getting all the money yet, from the millions of dollars for sewer improvements. One of the requirements of that grant is that we reserve a certain amount of money every year for future sewer improvements. It amounts to roughly $47,000 to $50,000 a year. That's going to have to be budgeted to be reserved every single year, and that means you either need to provide additional revenues or you need to reserve it in, based on your current cash that you have as or whatever. But ultimately, that started in 2022. So what this resolution does is just take our existing fund balance in the sewer fund, which is over $1 million, and restricts $47,000 of it for 2022 and $50,000 of it for 2023 to meet the requirements of PFA for that grant. And this money can be used for future capital projects related to sewer projects. So it's not frozen forever. It just has to be used for a specific purpose.
So sewer projects or just the ponds?
Sewer projects. So it could be pipe or, whatever. Yeah.
Eric, you said our current sewer fund is over $1 million.
Yeah.
For some reason, I thought you said we had expended about $500,000.
Yeah, we have.
And we've replenished that in 1 year?
No, we had much more than $1 million. The amount of money that has been accumulating in the sewer fund over years is substantial. That's another story if we want to talk about that at some point in the future. But that is, essentially what was happening is that we were making money hand over fist in the sewer fund and losing money in the water fund. So what was happening in previous years is we were taking money out of the general fund, putting it into the water fund to cover that shortfalls while we were making hundreds of thousands of dollars, a couple $100,000 a year in some cases in the sewer fund back in 2019 and 2018 and 2020 and stuff like that. I don't think anybody knew it because our financial system was inadequate and we didn't have a finance director. So we changed all that. Now we know. So we have those resources available to use for future projects, whether they be SCADA or whatever. That's the blunt answer. So,
And how, was I mistaken that some of that money was used for the seal coating?
that's correct. We used about $300,000 of it for various, some of the seal coating, crack sealing, and some of the overlays that were mill and overlay that were done on some of the streets. Yes, over the last couple of years. Yep, some of that went there. Some of that is programmed this year as well for some other capital projects in 2023, specifically airport projects. But yeah, I mean, the budget is currently spending down that surplus in the sewer fund. One of the questions you're going to have to ask yourself at a future budget meeting is, do we want to keep doing that, or should we be saving money in that sewer fund for a future street project?
I think that was our original intent when we set that up.
I don't think anybody really knew what the intent was, nor did they understand exactly how much money they had. And 20 years ago, when you were on city council, you didn't have GASB requirements for fund accounting anyway, and so they weren't doing anything but looking at it as one big pot of money. So it was different back then.
I think I talked to Dave. I had a question about that, when we were looking at the water fund and the sewer fund and all of them running kind of negative balances until we get reimbursed. But it made sense to me, put this in the best way I could understand is we were collecting sewer funds, but we weren't taking anything out of them for
a long time.
And the water fund was always running out of negative.
Right.
And we were replenishing the water fund out of the general fund. So basically what's happening is the sewer fund should have been doing that all along. We should have been transferring it. It's kind of catching up with what should have been done back then as far as some of those general fund balances should have been.
Well, and that's why we increased the water fund and everything else years ago, just to start catching back up to even.
That's
So
right.
that kind of made it more understandable why we're using sewer funds to do road, repaving and things. And it's like, okay, well, some of that should have probably have been into our general fund, and our paving fund would have been better, but we have to dig into it.
Yep. That's pretty accurate. And when the city council adapted 3 years ago for the 2021 budget, adopted a rate plan, for, how much you're going to raise rates in the water and sewer fund. And I know people sometimes are concerned about that because our water and sewer rates are a lot higher than they were a few years ago, is to address this particular issue because we were running negatives in some of these other funds. From a best practices standpoint, each one of these funds should make money, or at least break even. Make money because you want to save some money for future capital projects, right? You don't want to necessarily just break even, because if you don't, then you don't have any money to fix stuff later. And so I think that's been addressed now. I think you've got a good plan for that, at least for the next couple of years. The question is, what do you do for the next 5 or 10? When is that next street project actually going to happen? Probably can't borrow any money for a while, but maybe you can do a little bit between now and then. Maybe you can do a few blocks or something, because some of the streets are going to need it. But ultimately, all this resolution does is just restrict some funds that are already there, for future capital projects for sewer, which you could spend, when you have a sewer capital project.
And then we just need to do this in the budget essentially every year.
Yep. That's right.
I'll move to approve resolution 2023-43, restrict funds for PFA requirements.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Jones, Aye. Ivisu,
Yes.
Teagues,
Aye.
Dobson,
Aye.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Landine,
Aye.
Mayor Coleman.
Aye.
This last item, funny it is, the last resolution I present is on the community center. The community center this is authorizing, this is at your request from the last Thursday meeting we had, authorizing the release of an RFP for design services for the community center. I did today this morning, the grant agreement for the $50,000, and I signed it and received a counter signature later this afternoon. So that's now done.
50,000.
Yes, I knew that was coming, but the wheels of government turn slowly sometimes. But that is official as of today. $50,000 from the I always forget what it's called. Age-friendly communities grant. It's a state grant for design. This resolution is at your request, and so I don't have any other presentation other than that. It's pretty similar to the resolution from a couple years ago.
The one question we had the other night was reimbursed funds. It does meet that criteria that we can spend the money.
We just can't spend any money basically until after Memorial Day, and as long as we don't do that, which we're obviously not going to do.
Right.
So.
But there was some question as to whether we had to pay them directly or whether
No.
we get our money back.
Well, we'd have to present receipts.
But we can do it that way.
Yeah, that's the way it's supposed to be done. It's you spend the money and then they give you the money back. And this has to be complete by the end of March of 2024. So you've got a little less than a year to complete this project. When I say complete the project, doesn't mean it has to be built. Just that the design portion of it that you're spending for this has to be complete. And so, ultimately, you get this money. You're going to have to come back and do an RFP you're going to have to select somebody to do the design, which the city council will have to do. We'll solicit those people. You'll select that firm that does that. And then at that point, we'll know kind of what it costs, and there'll have to be a budget amendment to account for this money, coming in and going out. And it could be more than $50,000, and if that's, not saying it will, but I'm just saying it could. So you'll have to decide if it's more than 50 where that money comes from. And you have money restricted already in the capital fund for the community center, and so that's the most likely place, but that's a possibility.
I just have one question on this RFP.
Yep.
Do we need to waste the time for activity planning?
Yes. It is the key question. What are we doing in this building? And I think that if you can help answer that question that's been answered for a couple of years now, it will help the architect design what the building looks like and what it's supposed to do. There's a principle in architecture called form follows function. In other words, what a building does is based on what a building looks like is based on what you do with it, right? A swimming pool looks like a swimming pool. A gym looks like a gym. A meeting room looks like a meeting room. You don't have to do anything, George. You don't have to. I think you should.
And then another question in regards to what Mr. Peterson said at the beginning of the meeting about redoing a building that we already have. Haven't we moved past that discussion, and the money that was secured was to go toward the new structure? Or am I not thinking that correctly?
I would hope that we haven't moved past that, but
We have or haven't?
I would hope that we haven't if we run short of what would be necessary to build one. I would prefer that become a part of at least the discussion as opposed to leaving this go for another 2 or 3 or 4 years until we can. I mean, when we're building a new building, but we don't have the funds yet to build the new building, is a moving target. You know, we every year then we put it out for another bid, and it's higher than what it was before, and we have to collect more. And at some point in time, we haven't taken care of the real issue is, do we have a place for seniors to do their activities?
It's for seniors.
And that's my concern, is that's the initial need, not the want, that's the need. The want is the new building, and if we can do it, great. But if in the process of getting there, we're not meeting the actual need, I think we're missing the boat. And that's why I said I would prefer that it doesn't come off the table, but I think you as a council have kind of moved towards the part of saying, if you can do this, we would support a new building. And so we're still in that phase, and I think that's what this does, is answers that question, how much? And now we have practical goals in mind rather than a ballpark 850. Is it $1 million? Is it $1.2 million? And then these individuals who've done such good work of fundraising will know what's the real goal.
My question to that is, though, what if, and it's not an ultimatum, but a lot of people said, I'll give you this money if it's towards a new building. If not, I'm keeping my money.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens to those people then?
Well, then that's not a donation.
Yeah.
If you're trying to hold money, if you're holding money as a hostage for something, that's not a donation.
Well, I didn't look at it that way, but okay.
Well, and I guess what I would say is, if it's going to cost $400,000 more than what we have to build the building, then I'm sorry, I would turn down 100 or 200 if we don't have it. I mean, we have to, I think we have to bring this back down to a level that most people can identify, and that's, can we afford to buy a new car? You know, mom and dad are going to give me a couple $100 towards the purchase of a new car, but it's going to be several thousand more than I can afford. I can't do it until I know I've got the money. And so I think that's what we have said all along is, you have our support if you can raise these funds, and that's where we're still at. We haven't reached June, we don't know what the price is. I think until we know that, I don't think we can eliminate any option.
I'm in agreement. We don't want to eliminate any option at this time. My concern with the number one, with the community engagement and space and activity planning, is that sets us back, because we've done all this. We have had community engagement. We have had, Adele brought a list of potential activities in there, because it's all potential. We don't know for sure what our activities, would we have known 5 years ago, well, maybe 5, but 10 years ago that we would be doing bone builders? You know, there's so many changes in the dynamics that I'm afraid if we put the RFP to include the community engagement on the space and what's going to be in it, we're starting all over from ground zero. People have had an opportunity. We had the one big meeting in the VMC. I'm looking because I'm hoping people are going to shake their heads. Yes, where people had that opportunity to offer their suggestions. They had the opportunity to be on this committee. We formed the committee to kind of decide. I feel that the committee has decided kind of on the size. It's going to be primarily pretty open space that can be used for multiple things, except for depending on the kitchen and stuff like that. I'm not saying there's not some areas that need to be written down in, I don't want to say stone, but, if we're going to put a commercial kitchen in there, that's going to affect the bid. And I think that's what we're looking at, is to get an actual bid so that we know if the money that the group has already got donated is enough, or if they need to go higher or what, because our number is too soft. And so I think that's where I'm concerned about the number one, going back to that level of starting is going to set us back.
Yeah. My only concern with not doing that is it does not seem like we have a community buy-in at this stage. You know, those numbers and the number of individuals that have talked to me too, that they have not bought into, and I'm not sure how we get them to buy into how they would use this building.
The thing is we've done surveys before. This survey was 183 people, and it was pretty fast. It was only on if people were on Facebook and that. We didn't have the paper ones like we did on the surveys we did, I don't know, was it 2 years ago? I'm kind of losing track of time. But, you know, I don't think we're ever going to get 100% agreement on what this center is going to be. I think we asked about the locations and everything. All the different locations were taken into consideration. And we finally made a decision that, okay, it's going to be built here. There's going to be people that still bring up these other ideas, but we have to quit letting projects being stalled because individuals come and talk to us. We need to move forward with this. And I just think the number one is going to, it starts us all over. That's just my...
That's what I was trying to say, only you did it better. Imagine that. Yeah, what? It just is going to derail it.
I mean, I thought it was to put out the RFP so that we could get a definite cost on what it's going to be. Because that's what's been floating around here. Is $800,000 going to be enough or not? You know, and then once we know the dollar amount, Tom, we might have to decide, okay, we're not going to build new here because it's just gotten too expensive. And then we have to look at maybe going to other places. But right now...
I have no problem with the RFP just getting an idea of who's going to do the work. Yeah. And just for the bid of the project. Yeah, I have no problem with that at all. I think that's probably money well spent.
I just think we save a little money also by not including that in it.
I would think so. Would save time for sure.
Well, and they're going to charge for their time to come and do
well, and then
community meetings and everything.
I think whoever we award it to is going to wind up doing their own work again. I mean, the architect that we choose is probably going to wind up asking a lot of questions and interviews and all the other stuff that they normally do anyway. So we'll have some of that, but we'll be going forward. No, I agree.
So is there any way we can pull that sentence out, or do you have to
It's
rewrite
up to you guys. I mean, you can introduce it and amend it however you want.
I think I'll make a motion that we amend resolution 2023-44. Well, wait, before I make a motion, is there more discussion? I don't want, because I said my 2.5 cents worth.
You got 4, I threw mine in there.
I mean, I don't want people feeling that I'm forcing a decision here.
No? Anybody else?
No,
Anybody disagree?
Add my 2 cents to it.
I support that idea.
All right.
Okay.
Then I'll make a motion that we amend resolution 2023-44 to take out the number 1, community engagement on space and activity planning for the RFP, that is not included, and we just go with the second and third.
One clarification on the motion. You mean a motion to adopt, because you can't amend it until you've actually introduced the... You mean when you want to introduce this resolution without number 1?
Right.
Okay, all right.
If we're done with all that, I'll second it.
Any further discussion? Okay, we'll have roll call.
Schultz?
Aye.
Robson?
Yes.
Teagues?
No.
Easter?
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Landine,
Aye.
Mayor Coleman.
Aye.